Peace and blessings. Welcome to Mental Wellness for the Culture. I am your host, Belinda Gordon-Battle. I'm so excited to have my second guest for season 3, Ms. Altheresa Clark. She is the Chief Clinical Officer of Inspire4Purpose, LLC. This is our opportunity to engage in the conversation about mental health, mental wellness as a significant and essential part of our culture. I'm so excited. I have watched this young lady from afar. I've met her once or twice, but she has always been on my list as potential guest. She is worldwide known. Please share with us a little bit about Inspire for Purpose and welcome, Altheresa Clark.
Thank you for having me, Belinda. I am super excited to be here today. I am a licensed clinical social worker and the CEO of Inspire4Purpose, and we are a group mental health practice here in South Florida, where our focus is working with marginalized communities to provide affordable and accessible mental health counseling services. And so I'm super excited to talk about the topics we're talking about because mental health is something that I'm super passionate about.
I love it. I love it. It sounds like you are with us and saying that we have clinicians, we have professionals, we have people that look like us, that sound like us, that understand us, and are opening our doors to work with us.
Yes, absolutely. Because we realize that it's important for people like us to see people that look like them, right? They have a different layer of connection and experience with clinicians that look like them and understand their background, their culture, and just overall their life experiences.
Yes, I love that. I'm so glad to have you. It's October the 9th. Tomorrow is a really important day for clinicians. It's a day when we stop and recognize that on October the 10th, we have World Mental Health Day. And
Yes.
we want to be included in that process. We are a part of this world. We are working in our communities to make sure mental health is accessible. What does this day mean to you?
It's so important, not just as a therapist, but as a person who, when I was younger, I had family members that suffered with mental health. And so coming from a background of seeing it in the family and understanding that in Black culture, it was like a secret. You didn't really talk about it. I'm so glad to see where we are now and bringing awareness to mental health, because mental health awareness is something that we all need to focus on. It's something that we all should stop and take a look at. And so World Mental Health Day is important, right? It's a day where we not only look at mental health as a day problem, but it's of all of our issue, right? We all on some level have had something that has impacted our mental health. And so for me, it's important because not only do I bring awareness to it on my social media pages, I tell friends, I tell family, take the time to, at least if you don't do anything for your mental health on that day, particularly, stop, really check in with yourself. We are so quick to do our day-to-day things and we're always ripping and running and doing things. But on that day, I encourage people to slow down, take a breath, really check in with yourself. How is your mental health? How are you pouring into yourself? How are you checking in with yourself? What are you doing to improve your overall mental wellness? And even if it's small little things, by just doing deep breaths or checking in um, as a first step, right? And so for me, it's a day where I am choosing not to work that day, right? I'm taking a mental health day for myself
Love that.
to really, really take the day and slow down and stop. I'm super busy all the time. I was just saying this to some friends, like I'm always on the go. And that day I'm going to be conscious to pour into myself and really do absolutely nothing as much as possible, right? I'm still a mommy and a wife and I can't stop those things, right? But in a sense of work wise, I am going to not do anything and really take the day out to pour into myself. And I am encouraging my team members to do the same. I'm encouraging people around me who have the access and the accessibility to do that. And even if it's not the full day, to take some part of your day, if it's a lunch break, if it's a 30-minute break, to really just check in with yourself, pour into yourself that day, and really do something to improve and acknowledge that mental health is important, especially on tomorrow.
Absolutely. October the 10th, World
Yeah.
Mental Health Day. I love what you're saying. Stop, breathe. If you can, take a day to yourself. But if
Mhm.
you can't and you have to work that day, I always say at least use that day to call your EAP and
Yes.
set up an appointment
Yes.
you to get some self care, some self love with
Yes.
a licensed clinical therapist such
Yes.
as Altheresa Clark
Mhm.
and her team at Inspire4Purpose.
Yes.
EAP is for Employee Assistance Program. If you
Mhm.
are paying for insurance, you are likely to have behavioral health, mental health um, as a part of your plan. And this is a time you could just take 20 or 30 minutes on World Mental Health Day, check
Mhm.
in with yourself. Go ahead and make that call.
Mhm.
Everybody deserves to make that call.
Right.
When people go into corrections, they say, I want to make one call. I'm in prison. I need to make one call.
Mhm.
No, this is when you need to make one call
Yes. Mhm.
and make sure that you're getting the support services you need. Just to talk to someone makes such a difference in your life.
Absolutely
So
agree.
thank you for that. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to October the 10th. There's some things I'm going to do and the projects that I'm working on and
Mhm.
making sure that the people around me recognize World Mental Health Day. So thank you.
Absolutely, no problem.
October is a busy month though for us
It
because
is.
not only do we have World Mental Health Day on October the 10th, the entire month of October, we also take a moment to recognize domestic violence.
Mhm.
In addition to that, we take a moment to recognize that October is National Bullying Prevention Month.
Yes.
Bullying is a huge topic
Mhm.
in our homes, in our schools, in our workplaces,
Mhm.
in our communities. When you think about National Bullying Prevention Month, what are some things you can share with our audience? Especially, let's start with the children. What would you
Right.
share with children that are in our schools, in our communities, in organizations with young people? What can you share with them?
So first to acknowledge it is a huge, huge issue. I think we're in a state of culture where it is something that's happening so consistently and all the time. And the first thing I would say is recognizing the signs of bullying. So as children, right, they don't always feel comfortable sharing that they're being bullied with parents or trusted adults or guardians. And so, coming from a parent standpoint, even a teacher, right, an educator, what are some of the signs that you need to look for, right? So, if you're noticing the student or the child is being more withdrawn, they're having mood changes, they're you're noticing maybe unexplained injuries, or maybe that you're realizing that their interests have changed. So maybe they used to be involved in extracurricular activities, and now they don't want to. They're isolating themselves. Those are just some signs to start having open conversations. I think the thing that keeps bullying so profound is oftentimes children don't necessarily speak up about it out of fear, right, or retaliation, not wanting to get the other people involved in trouble. And it can be an array of things. And so I think the silence is what perpetuates that bullying oftentimes. So as adults, right, or educators or parents, if you notice changes about the youth, your child, um, ask them, have a conversation with them. It doesn't always mean that they will be upright and be open the first time you have a conversation, but nurture that child. Have multiple conversations about the things that you're noticing, the changes that you're noticing, because bullying oftentimes in the world of social media, a lot of times it happens online, right? It's not always a child being pushed, hit, kicked. It's name calling, it's get online and doing insane things on social media. And so we live in a whole different world now than maybe me and you, Belinda. Bullying was so much
Absolutely.
different, right?
Absolutely.
Now children have to worry about physical bullying, virtual cyberbullying. There's so many different types of bullying that's going on now, and for children and the youth this age, they have to worry about different levels of bullying. And so first I would tell people is to recognize some of the signs and symptoms that you
Mhm.
notice. And then the other side about it is speak up about it, right? I think if we have more open conversations, especially in schools, right, maybe having groups or outlets where they can talk about this, the bullying, in safe spaces where they feel open and honest to
Yes.
share these things. And then once they're open and honest about it, having action. right? Because it's one thing for a child to
Absolutely.
build up the courage to say that
Yes.
they're being bullied and experiencing bullying.
Right.
The next step is for the trusted adults that they come to do something about it, right? To take
Yes.
action. Because you don't want the child to feel like, well, I finally opened up and nothing's happening, right? There are no
Absolutely.
consequences. And we know that we are getting better in the school system with bullying and consequences for it, but there's still a lot of area of growth,
Right.
especially around cyberbullying, because it's, sometimes it's harder to catch those
Mhm.
things, and having
Mhm.
someone to be diligent to follow up with those things.
Yeah.
But I think recognizing the symptoms and the signs that you notice first, and having open dialogue with children and youth when they do speak up about it, and then having some actionable steps that can be done to
Mhm.
render and to help those children who are experiencing the bullying, because oftentimes, like I said, they're silent for a reason.
Mhm.
Finally open up about it. There has to be some action behind that, so that they feel safe and that they can trust that they opened up and things will be done about the bullying for them.
Absolutely. You're so correct. To watch out for those signs and changes in our children, and as adults that we take action. One
Mhm.
thing I just want to add is and recently, when I say recently, probably in the last 10 years, when I've
Mhm.
been working in schools and organizations where there's an issue of bullying, I find it so important to not just prepare myself to work with the victim, but
Mm.
also to take a deep breath and prepare myself to work with the perpetrator. To
Yes.
me, the perpetrator of bullying, it's almost like I'm shouting out there, I am going through
Mhm.
something. I need some more support. There may
Correct.
be something going on in my home or in my background that's
Yes.
lending me to not be empathetic, to not be caring and considerate of another person, that's making me lash out at someone that I may feel like is weaker than I am.
Mhm.
And so I always take into consideration making sure that the school system not only cares for the victim, because that
Mhm.
victim needs to be cared for, or a survivor,
Correct.
say, but also takes a moment and says, this perpetrator, let's do some work here.
Right.
Does this perpetrator need to be in therapy? Should we have a few
Mhm.
lessons, a few groups around bullying with this perpetrator involved? Because
Correct.
it's not going to work to just um, provide support to the victim and then send the perpetrator right back
Mhm.
with no skills, no interventions, no strategies.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So we have to make sure we do more work in that direction also.
I agree with that as well.
When I was a little girl in sixth grade, there was a young lady. She my friend now, but to me at that time, she was a bit of a bully. I was changing
Mhm.
schools. I was going to a new school, and I told my mom that I felt like this girl was a bully.
Mhm.
And my mother, and you can't do this these days, but my mom was an educator,
Mhm.
and she came to my school and threw me a birthday party, and made this young lady, the bully, her assistant for the day.
Oh.
And I was in awe because I could
Mhm.
not believe, Mommy, I have friends, like people who
Right.
like me. You
Right.
didn't make them the assistant for the day. She made the girl that was my bully, or who I felt like was my bully. When I talked to her as an adult, she told me she did not think she was my bully at all. She never thought she bullied me.
Mm.
She actually thought she was trying to protect me and teach me how to engage and interact in that community that I was in at that time.
Oh, wow.
And it's so
Interesting.
important to communicate
Mhm. Mhm.
because I'm thinking one thing, she's thinking something else. I'm feeling something, she's feeling something else.
Exactly.
But that adult that took action, my mother, she was
Mhm.
able to come in and kind of bridge that gap for us. And
Mhm.
to this day, I consider her to be a friend. And I hope she considers
Wow.
me to be a friend also. But I always think about that scenario and how important it was for my mother, an adult, to come into the
Mhm.
picture, take some action. And it might have been unorthodox,
Right.
the action she took. But my mother was able to make a connection with her.
Mhm.
And therefore, I was placed in a better position because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing story to see, and
Thank
that your mom took action, right? Not maybe not in a traditional sense, right? But
you.
her action bridged the gap between you two, I'm sure, into now where you consider her as a friend. And I think
Absolutely.
that just goes back to like the adult taking action.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure even though it might have felt odd in the moment, that was your mom's way of hearing you and showing up for you, creating an environment so you didn't feel unsafe, and that she showed you that, listen, I heard you, I care, and I'm going to do what I can to help bridge that issue so that you don't have to continuously feel that way. And I think that that creates that safe environment for children that sometimes they don't always feel safe, seen, or heard. And
Right.
so it was amazing to hear that your mom was able to do that for you.
Absolutely. And not just do it for me, she did it for her. She did it for
Correct.
the girl too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my mom. My mom was amazing. My mom's deceased. She was amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
she always found that key and could open up that door. So safe places were created for me and my sister and my brother. So definitely, I agree that we as adults have to look at the scenario and help our young people find that key that works for them so that they can create and live and learn and thrive in safe spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as an adult, the first place that I was able to do that is I was an intern getting my master's degree, and I interned at a middle school. It was an inner city middle school, and I was launching restorative justice groups.
Right.
And I had never done this before. And so a lot of the groups were kids who fought each other and trying to bridge the gap between the two. And one particular group, it was a group full of girls who were, one group against the other, and they were bullying each other and fighting each other. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm out of my realm. What am I going to do as an intern? But it was a really good experience because you got to hear both sides. You got to really see the perpetrator, right? And that's why I really started to understand that they have their own mental health concerns and issues and things at home that they're experiencing that they're bringing to the school because they can't control their environment at home. But what can they do? They can bring it to school and kind of lash out sometimes and express themselves in not the best way, but it then translates into bullying. And so we were able to kind of process that. And then it gave me a new perspective on not just the survivors or the victims, but the perpetrators as well. Like, these youth are going through so much at home that no one really knows, right?
Yes.
All we see is the behavior, right? Which is the symptom. We don't really see the cause of it. And oftentimes problematic, quote unquote, children who have problem behaviors, you see the symptoms, right? And you're like, oh, they're just bad kids. We just need to handle them in a certain way. But oftentimes there's a cause there. And unless you dig a little deeper, all you see is that bullying, right? And so it's not always easy to work with perpetrators because, they have a negative light and their behaviors, right, are not positive.
Right.
But I think the work in bullying in a different perspective is, yes, focus on the people who are experiencing the bullying, but shift it, like you said, to the people who are doing the bullying, right? There's some work there that probably needs to be done as well.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. We have work to do in the community, and I am just so proud that you're one of my colleagues doing that work. I really am.
Thank you.
A couple of, maybe it's been 2 years now, my colleague Sharice Watson, Avis Warren, we did a bullying workshop, and I'll say in South Florida, I'm not going to say where, in South Miami, on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. Our thoughts were we may get 20 people. It was standing room only. We had to bring in chairs. That community embraced the topic. We wanted to focus on children, but what happened was that we realized the conversation shifted. It shifted to bullying for adults at work.
Yes.
And communicate and community and organizations, people in leadership. What are your thoughts about that, bullying in the workplace, and what we can do as adults when we are confronted with bullying?
Well, let me say, Belinda, I experienced bullying at work from my supervisor, and it was one of the most critical times for me mentally, because it's one thing, you think bullying is just for children, right? And then you become an adult and you realize, wait a minute, you can experience this as an adult.
Absolutely.
And not only that, to take it a step further, it's your direct supervisor, right? It's your boss. And so there are so many things that play into a factor, right? You need this job, you need the income to support your life and your family. And for me, it was consistent. it was over the a couple of years of this experience, and it was so difficult that it affected my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
In the hindsight, right, it's what I needed to propel me into my practice now, right?
Yes.
So, I always say, I'm grateful for that, because if it wasn't, then I would have probably still been there, right? Scared and in comfort and not taking the leap. But it really pushed me out of my comfort zone because I couldn't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I had did the traditional route. I had complained to her superiors. I had reached out to HR. I did all the steps that you can think of. But, her how she was very manipulative, right? And so it was, me against her. And I eventually, got the courage to do all these things, right? Because I also had the fear of retaliation, which is what a lot of adults have, right? If I speak up and I say something, I'm in fear I might lose my job, or, my boss can retaliate against me in certain things. And she had started to do that. And it wasn't until, the latter part of me working there, I really started going up the ladder. And once I started going up the ladder and making complaints and speaking up for myself, it started to slow down. So that experience for me, I had never experienced bullying as an adult. So, and especially at work, that was my first experience. And I was just in shock because I figured we're adults, we're mature, right? We should know how to regulate our emotions and all the things, right? But we know that doesn't always happen. So I would say is speak up for yourself. That was one of the biggest lessons that I learned.
Speak up
For yourself, because you have to advocate for yourself, because ultimately sometimes no one else will do it because they're afraid, right? And I had the same thing. My coworkers were afraid, and they're like, we're going to listen to you, we're going to support you, we're going to rally around you and listen to what you have to say, but we're not going to put anything because we're also afraid. And what if she does what she's doing to you to us now, and all the things. And so I am grateful that my friends and family outside of work supported me and encouraged me to say something, speak up.
Yes.
Fight for yourself, right? Yes. And it took some time, but eventually after pushing and pushing and pushing, she relented, right? And by then the epiphany came to me, and it's like, this thing has been on your heart to do. It's probably time to close the chapter and go into the next and go into your own practice and focus on the things that you're passionate about, mental health and helping those in the community. But it hugely impacted my mental health. I had a severe anxiety going to work and stress, which led to physical symptoms. It just was a really negative time for me. And the catalyst was essentially being bullied by my boss. And so I would definitely say speaking up for yourself, finding support, right? Community is so important when we're going through things. And so, like I said, I had a really good support system outside of work that encouraged me. And I did have a couple of coworkers internally, like I said, that heard me and also experienced it. So it's another thing. It's like, oh, I'm not alone, right? When you figure out that you're not only going through, I mean, it's unfortunate, right, that a group of people are going through something negative like that, but it also helps to know that you're not alone. So you have people to lean on and support and talk to, brainstorm with, help kind of navigate, because oftentimes when you don't know the answers, speaking to someone else, they can give you some insight on too, right? How to help yourself, how to navigate through this. And so for me, I had the community to support me and hear me out, and I felt seen and heard by them, and it empowered me to advocate even more for myself. Do not give up. Don't relent. Keep pushing until someone hears you, until something is done, something changes. And eventually it did. Like I said, but so I would say community and speaking up. And not being embarrassed, right? Oftentimes we might feel like, well, I'm an adult. I shouldn't be allowing someone to talk to me this way or treat me that way or bully me in that way. And it's more and more common nowadays, especially in the work environment or especially in your community or even on cyberbullying as well. It shows up for adults.
It does.
And we sometimes feel embarrassed to not say anything. And I know in the beginning I felt embarrassment because I felt like, well, I'm an adult. Like I should be able to have a conversation with her. We should be able to solve this and move forward. But that's not the case all the time. Not everyone is on your level emotionally and mentally. And the same thing goes for adults. I'm sure there are things that are happening in their home, right, in their life that they're bringing to this environment. And now it's showing up as bullying, unfortunately, right? So I think the same concept applies for adults and children. It's just not as spoken about
Right.
is for children, but it
Yeah.
absolutely exists for adults as
It
well.
does. It does. And when we had that workshop and it came to the surface, we were surprised and shocked at how much that conversation carried throughout that workshop. And they needed to have that conversation because it is happening in our
Yes.
workplaces. So I'm so glad, I'm very appreciative that you took the time to share that story with our audience and to
Yes.
remind them to speak up and speak out, get
Yes.
support, and that there is support for you if you are being bullied on your job.
Yes.
That is not the way we should be working. We should not have anxiety and stress based on one other person's action towards us.
Yep.
So thank you so much for sharing that. We are going to wrap up. This has been an amazing podcast, an opportunity for me to speak to you about our World Mental Health Day on October the 10th,
Yes.
also about National Bully Prevention Month for the entire month of October. I so appreciate you, but I want to know if you're ready to answer a few quick fire questions.
Yes.
All right, now.
Go for it.
Get set. Please share with your audience, what is your favorite fresh juice?
Ooh, I would say apple juice.
Apple juice, really?
Yes, I love apple juice.
It's so sweet.
Oh. Yes. Funny, I didn't like it as a child, but as an adult, I love it.
Do you have a brand you love? You don't have to say it, but just to give a particular one, or you just open to any apple juice?
I'm open to anyone, actually.
Wow. Okay. Okay. What's your favorite cookie?
Ooh, so I love oatmeal raisin cookies.
I had to learn to like oatmeal anything.
Yes, me too.
And it has to be hot and soft for me to like it.
I love it like that as well.
Yes, but I'm a chocolate chip girl.
Mm.
All day, every day. What's your favorite cake? We only doing sweet stuff.
I know. I love red velvet cake.
Okay. Okay. You're a fan of red velvet. Okay.
Love
I just like a nice pound cake.
Ooh, those are delicious too.
Yes. If you could tell our audience an app that they really need to have on their phone, and it could be around mental health and mental wellness, or it could be just something you enjoyed and you feel like our audience will enjoy also. What's that app?
So I would say Headspace is an app that I love to use. For those who do not know, it's an app to help with meditation, guided meditation. So I love using that app. I encourage all of my clients to use the app. So that would be my number one app, I would say. And then another app that I use is it's not centered around mental health, but it kind of helps me stay organized. And so it is the Monday app that I use to stay organized and for tasks. So that also is helpful as well.
Okay, it's called Monday. Oh, very nice. Thanks for sharing that. Monday and Headspace. I know Headspace, but I'm not familiar with Monday. Thanks for that. No Last but not least, please share your favorite trip, vacation that you've ever experienced or plan to experience in the near future.
Ooh, my favorite experience. So I would say this year I went to Puerto Rico with my husband for our anniversary.
Ooh.
And it was significant because we haven't taken, it's in the country, right? But we haven't taken a trip outside of the States, so to speak, since the pandemic. So it was significant for us, but also it was on our bucket list to go. Right. So it was an amazing trip that we got to take together.
I love that. I love that. It's just so important to take those moments. And especially COVID has taught us you have to go.
Yes.
You just have to go.
Yes.
So I want to thank you again for being here with us at Mental Wellness for the Culture. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for coming and showing up and showing out. Thank you for being a part of our family now.
Yes. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love talking all things mental wellness. So thank you for inviting me and having me on the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will see you next week, but this will be aired on October the 9th in preparation for our World Mental Health Day on October the 10th. We will continue the conversation about mental wellness for the culture at another time. Thank you.
Thank you.